Hello, and welcome back to British English Pod. It's me, Lewis, and yes, I'm wearing a Real Betis top because you might realise and might know by now that I am a Leeds United fan, but in Spain, my favourite team is Real Betis Balompié. Let me know, are you a football fan? Are you into footy? And if so, who do you support? What is your favourite club? As I said, for me, it's Leeds United and Real Betis. But let me know in the comments, who do you support? And football aside, because that is not this week's topic, we're not going to be focusing on football. But, because I'm into footy, I thought I'd mention it at the beginning. And the focus of this week's podcast is a continuation of what we did last week. And if you haven't already checked out the video from last week, well, what are you waiting for? Because in that video, I was practicing my narration skills and practicing my reading skills by reading 5 short stories to you. And you can have access to all of these stories with a PDF that I've made, and it can be downloaded for free. So check out the link in the description, and that way you can download this document to read all of these questions and stories over and over again whenever you want. And yeah, short stories, they're fun, they're easy, and I believe that short stories are a great way of improving your language skills. And the main reason is because I struggle to focus on a really long story. For me, it's really complicated to stay focused and stay motivated and stay concentrated enough to be able to read a whole novel which has 1,000 pages because, you know, I get bored or I get distracted and I forget the beginning of the story. So you have to keep stopping and starting. Each chapter might take an hour to read or something insane like that. But with short stories, you can have more of a routine where you tell yourself that every day I'm going to read a short story. And this is possible because it only takes, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes. And if you can listen to the story at the same time as you are reading the story, it's perfect. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone because, of course, you are listening to how I pronounce everything and you're reading it. So it's much better to be able to retain this new information, new words, phrases, expressions, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to stop waffling on and blabbing and beating around the bush, and I'm going to start reading again. And of course, you will be able to read along with me by downloading the PDF or just watching this video. But of course, I completely understand. If you prefer to just listen, that's fine. Sometimes I do the same as you. I will put on a YouTube video that lasts for an hour, and I will be listening whilst I'm writing some emails or brainstorming some ideas for videos. So, whatever you prefer, you are in charge. You choose if you want to read and listen at the same time, or just listen. I'm easy. I don't mind. It's a free world. Do what you want. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And the first topic and the first short story is related to job interviews. In particular, it's related to a job interview that didn't go as planned, that it went pear-shaped. To go pear-shaped is a nice British idiom which means to not go well, to go wrong. to go badly. So, shall we get started? Let's do it. The interview disaster. When Priya got the email inviting her for a job interview at Hawke and Moss, a trendy London marketing firm, she nearly dropped her phone. She had been busting a gut, applying to companies for months, and finally, someone had noticed. She screamed, then quickly composed herself. "This is it," she whispered. "Time to nail it." The interview was set for Friday morning. She spent the next few days brushing up on marketing trends, updating her portfolio, and practicing answers in front of the mirror. Her flatmate Tom gave her a thumbs up. "You've got this, mate. Don't just go to pieces under pressure." She laughed nervously. "No promises." On Friday, things got off to a rocky start. She overslept. Her alarm hadn't gone off. Then the bus broke down halfway through her journey. She ended up sprinting the last 10 minutes through central London, heels in hand, hair blowing everywhere like a madwoman. By the time she arrived, she was sweaty, flustered, and 5 minutes late. "Deep breaths," she told herself. "You can turn this around." The receptionist smiled politely as Priya arrived, panting. "Miss Kapoor, they're ready for you." "Great, no time to freshen up." She entered the boardroom where two sharp-looking people sat behind a sleek table. One of them, a woman in a navy suit, gave a curt nod. "Let's begin." The first few questions were standard. She answered them confidently, drawing from her past experience at a small startup. But then came the curveball. How would you handle a client who's going off the rails, publicly criticizing our work online? Priya blinked. I'd try to de-escalate." She could feel herself losing her train of thought. "Sorry," she said, flustered. "Can I start over?" Things only got worse. She knocked over her water bottle, soaked her notes, and accidentally called the interviewer Mr. when she was clearly a Miss. At one point, she tried to make a joke and got nothing but a polite chuckle. She was dying inside. By the end, Priya was certain she'd blown it. "Thank you for coming in," the woman said with a smile that may or may not have been fake. Priya walked out with her shoulders slumped. Outside, she called Tom. "It was a total disaster. I completely messed it up." Tom laughed gently. "It couldn't have been that bad." "Oh, it was. I might as well have turned up in pajamas and done a dance." But something strange happened that afternoon. She got an email. Subject: Interview follow-up. "Hi Priya, thank you for coming in today. Despite a slightly hectic start, we're impressed with your creativity and honesty. We'd like to invite you back for a second interview. Best, the Hawke and Moss team." Priya stared at the screen, mouth open. "What?" Tom walked into the room and saw her frozen. "What's wrong now?" She looked up slowly. "I got a second interview." He grinned. "Told you had it in the bag." "I was all over the place," she said. "They must be mad." "Or maybe," Tom said, "they saw something real." At the second interview, Priya showed up early, calm and confident. This time she wore flats. No sprinting, they talked more casually, laughed about the mishap, and she even got to pitch her own idea for a campaign. She walked out beaming. 2 days later, she got the job. From disaster to dream come true. And all because she didn't give up, even when everything seemed to be going horribly wrong. As Tom said later, handing her a glass of wine, you didn't crash and burn. You rose from the ashes. Awesome! She got the job! Woohoo! Good job, Priya, you see? That's what you gotta do if you have a job interview. If things go wrong at the beginning, stay calm, cool, and collected, and hopefully, fingers crossed, things will turn around and get better, as they did for Priya. So yeah, Priya, congratulations on the job. So I hope you enjoyed that first story of the podcast. Now we're going to move on to the next story. And the title already tells you more or less what it's about, because the title is called Stuck at the Airport. So, let's begin. Stuck at the Airport. Maya had planned every detail of her holiday. She'd booked a beautiful Airbnb in Lisbon, made a color-coded itinerary, and even created a playlist called Sunshine Vibes. She was buzzing with excitement as she rolled her suitcase into Heathrow Airport. But the universe had other plans. She was standing in line to check in when a voice came over the loudspeaker. Flight 274 to Lisbon has been delayed due to technical issues. Further updates to follow. Maya blinked. You've got to be kidding me. The man behind her let out a groan. Typical. They always muck things up when you're actually in a rush. Maya tried to stay positive. It's just a delay. No big deal. She headed to a cafe and settled in with a coffee and a good book. 2 hours later, there was still no update. She refreshed the airline's app. Nothing. She checked Twitter. Chaos. Apparently, the plane hadn't even left Madrid yet. Maya was starting to lose patience. Her phone battery was low. She was hungry again, and her seat was right under an air conditioner that was blasting cold air. She pulled on a hoodie and sighed. This is turning into a nightmare. Next to her, a man in his 30s overheard and chuckled. At least you didn't spill coffee all over yourself like I just did. Maya looked over. He had a giant wet patch down his shirt and was using napkins to mop himself up. She couldn't help but laugh. Well, now I feel better about my day. I'm Dan, he said. Also stuck. Also fed up. Maya, same. They started chatting. He was a graphic designer from Manchester, on his way to a friend's wedding. She told him about her solo holiday plans. Time passed. They shared snacks, swapped travel stories, and laughed about the miserable situation. The two strangers stranded in a sterile airport. They were getting on like a house on fire. Just as things were looking up, another announcement came through. We regret to inform you that Flight 274 has been cancelled. Please visit the customer service desk for rebooking options. Maya stared at the speaker in disbelief. You have got to be joking! Dan ran a hand through his hair. Right, let's go see what the damage is. The queue at customer service was massive. Everyone was kicking off, shouting, waving their arms. It was chaos. This is going to take hours, Maya groaned. Dan nodded. Fancy teaming up and trying the website instead? They found a quiet corner and opened their laptops. After about 30 minutes of refreshing, crashing pages, and swearing under their breath, Dan managed to rebook a flight for the next morning. Got one, he said. 6:45 a.m. Bit grim, but it'll do. Maya sighed. There's nothing left for tonight. I'll take the same one. Now they had a new problem. Where to sleep? All the airport hotels are fully booked, Maya said after checking online. Looks like it's the floor for us, Dan said, holding up his hoodie like a pillow. They found a quiet spot near Gate 22 and set up camp like backpackers. They used scarves as blankets, shared earbuds to watch a film, and played cards until they couldn't keep their eyes open. It was cold, uncomfortable, and weirdly fun. At around 3 a.m., Maya woke up with a crick in her neck and Dan's hoodie half over her face. She looked around at the fluorescent lighting, the silent walkways, the occasional announcement echoing in the distance. I'll never take a normal bed for granted again, she muttered. Dan stirred beside her. Tell me about it. By morning, they were both groggy, but in surprisingly good spirits. They grabbed croissants and boarded the plane together. As they took off, Dan smiled. Honestly, I thought yesterday was going to be a write-off, but I actually had a decent time. Maya nodded. Same. If I had to be stuck, I'm glad it was with someone who didn't lose the plot. When they landed in Lisbon, they exchanged numbers and a hug. Maybe see you around town, Dan said. Definitely, Maya replied. Her trip hadn't started as planned, but sometimes the best travel stories come out of a mess. Whoop, whoop, whoop! So that is the second story of today, all about Dan and Maya and what seems like the beginning of some romantic love story. I'm sure they could make a film about this, about how Maya and Dan fell in love thanks to a delayed and then cancelled flight. You know, I think it's got legs. It could happen. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to get straight on to the third story. And it is called Lost Phone. So let's get cracking. Lost Phone. It all started with a latte and a moment of distraction. Ellie had been rushing around like a headless chicken all morning, dropping off her dry cleaning, buying a birthday gift for a niece, and trying to make it to a cafe meeting with her freelance client on time. By the time she arrived at the cafe, she was flustered and 10 minutes late. Sorry, she said, sliding into her seat and fishing her laptop out of her bag. It's been one of those mornings. No worries, her client replied, smiling. Let's get started. The meeting went well. They discussed ideas for a marketing campaign and settled on a rough plan. Ellie left the cafe feeling lighter, even optimistic. She popped into a few shops and then headed home, already planning a chilled evening on the sofa. But when she got through her front door, she froze. Her bag felt oddly light. She reached in and started rummaging through it. Laptop, keys, wallet, but no phone. Her heart skipped a beat. No, 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 she muttered. Don't tell me I've lost it. She dumped everything onto the floor and went through her things again. Still no phone. Panic set in. She racked her brain, trying to remember where she'd last used it. The cafe? One of the shops? On the bus? She grabbed her laptop and used the Find My Phone feature. It said the device was offline. Brilliant, she muttered. Batteries probably conked out. She sprinted back to the cafe, breathless and red-faced. The barista gave her a sympathetic look. Sorry, love, no one's handed one in. She retraced her steps to every shop she'd visited. No luck. One shop assistant even said, "You're the third person today who's lost a phone." Ellie was starting to feel like the universe was having a laugh at her expense. Back home, she was pacing around, trying to decide whether to cry or scream. Then her flatmate, Grace, walked in. "You all right?" she asked, dropping her gym bag. "No, I lost my phone. It's gone. Just vanished." "Have you tried calling it?" Ellie paused. "With what, Grace? A carrier pigeon?" Grace grinned and pulled out a phone. "Use mine, genius." Ellie dialed her number, pacing the living room. It rang. Then someone answered. A man's voice. "Hello?" Ellie's eyes widened. "Hi? Oh my god, you found my phone." There was a short pause. Yeah, I picked it up on the bus. Was going to hand it in, but didn't know where." "Oh, thank you. Where are you? I can come pick it up." The man gave her an address in East London. "It's a corner shop. Just ask for Mo." Grace raised an eyebrow when Ellie hung up. "You sure that's legit?" "I don't care. I'm going." "Text me when you get there," Grace said, smirking. Ellie rolled her eyes. "Ha ha." She jumped on the overground and arrived at a tiny shop squashed between a barber shop and a nail salon. Inside, a young man behind the counter looked up and smiled. "You must be the phone girl." "That's me," Ellie grinned. He pulled the phone from under the counter and handed it over. "Lucky I saw it. Was just sitting there on the bus seat." Ellie felt a wave of relief wash over her. "You're a lifesaver." He shrugged. "No big deal. I've lost mine before too. Total nightmare." Ellie insisted on buying him a drink as a thank you. They walked to the coffee shop next door and ended up chatting for over an hour. Mo turned out to be easy to talk to, funny, kind, and down to earth. "You're not like most people I meet in London," Ellie said. "What, grumpy and in a rush?" She laughed. "Exactly." When she got home, Grace was sprawled on the sofa. "Well, was it a dodgy back alley exchange?" "Not quite. He was lovely. Saved my whole day." Grace smirked. "You going to see him again?" Ellie hesitated. "Maybe." Losing her phone had nearly done her head in, but somehow it had also led to something unexpectedly good. As she lay in bed later that night, Ellie thought about the day's madness, the panic, the chase, the relief, and smiled. "Life's funny sometimes," she whispered to herself. "It really is." Whoop whoop! So, another happy ending. Amazing. She lost her phone, or rather, she left it on the bus without wanting to by accident. And this random friendly guy in London picked it up, took it back to the corner shop, and then they were chatting for an hour. Maybe they'll fall in love. Wouldn't that be a nice story? Instead of having your parents meeting on Tinder or something like that, they met out of chance. Perhaps it was destiny. It was fate. Who knows? But let me know in the comments. Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever lost your phone, first of all? And if you have lost your phone, has anybody ever picked it up and returned it to you? Because it's never happened to me. But I don't have a lot of faith in random strangers. So if I did one day lose my phone, I don't think I'd get it back. I think I'd be depressed, I'd be sad, and I'd think, God damn it, I've lost my phone. Never gonna get it back. I'd lose hope for sure. All right, let's continue with the fourth story. And it's all related to a typical traditional dish and meal in the UK, and it is a Sunday roast. Mmm, delicious. And the name of the story is Sunday Roast Chaos. So, shall we continue? Story number 4. Sunday Roast Chaos. The plan was simple. Cook a traditional Sunday roast for her in-laws and knock their socks off. It was Chloe's first time hosting, and she wanted everything to be perfect. Crispy roast potatoes, golden Yorkshire puddings, gravy from scratch. She'd even cleaned the flat twice and borrowed a proper tablecloth from her mum. But as anyone who's ever hosted a family dinner knows, things rarely go to plan. The morning started smoothly enough. She was up early, apron on, music playing, chopping vegetables like a pro. Smashing it, she said to herself, pleased. Her boyfriend, Jamie, wandered in, half asleep. You all right? Yep, all under control. Just don't get in my way. He raised his hands and backed off. Roger that, head chef. The first hiccup came when Chloe opened the fridge and gasped. The chicken! Jamie! Where's the chicken? Jamie blinked. I thought you picked it up yesterday. No, I told you to. They stared at each other in horror. Right, she said, grabbing her coat. I'll run to the shop. You peel the carrots, okay? Don't mess them up. The local supermarket was packed. Apparently, everyone had decided to make a Sunday roast. Chloe had to elbow her way to the meat section. There was one chicken left. She snatched it up like it was treasure, only for an old lady to eye it with disappointment. Sorry, Chloe said, breathless. Emergency roast. The woman gave her a slow nod of approval. Fair enough, love. Back home, things were heating up, literally. She shoved the chicken in the oven, shook the potatoes into hot oil, and tried to keep an eye on everything at once. Then the smoke alarm went off. Jamie came running in. What did you do? It's just the fat spitting, she shouted over the beeping. Grab a tea towel. After several minutes of flapping and swearing, the noise stopped. They stood in silence, covered in oil splatters. We're smashing this, Jamie said dryly. Chloe laughed despite herself. Totally. By the time his parents arrived, the flat looked perfect. Candles lit, table set, wine open, but Chloe was a bundle of nerves. Jamie's mum gave her a kiss on the cheek. What a lovely home. His dad nodded. Smells good, too. Something's definitely cooking. Hopefully it's edible, Chloe muttered, heading to the kitchen. Everything was ready, almost. She opened the oven to check on the Yorkshire puddings, and her heart sank. They were flat, like sad, deflated muffins. No, 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 she whispered. Why aren't you puffing up? She tried to stay calm, plating everything else like a contestant on MasterChef. Jamie stuck his head in. It all looks banging. Don't stress. Easy for you to say. They all sat down, and to Chloe's surprise, everyone was smiling. This gravy is to die for, Jamie's mum said. Spot on roasties, added his dad. Even the flat Yorkshires didn't seem to matter. The wine flowed, the conversation was lively, and soon everyone was stuffed to the gills. When they were clearing up, Jamie whispered, Told you they'd love it. Yeah, I just wanted it to be, proper. It was. And now? He said, pulling her into a hug. You can sit down and let me do the dishes. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Who are you and what have you done with my boyfriend? He winked. Don't get used to it. That night, as they lay on the sofa surrounded by dirty dishes and half-eaten desserts, Chloe sighed. Well, that was mental. Jamie grinned. You nailed it. She grinned back. Next time, we're ordering takeaway. Sunday roast, Sunday roast, Sunday roast. So that was a story about a Sunday roast. And for those of you who don't know, a Sunday roast is a roast meat. It could be chicken, turkey, pork, beef, lamb, anything really. And it's always combined with roast potatoes, Yorkshire puddings, a variety of different vegetables like peas, broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, you name it, we have it. And it's also what we tend to have for a Christmas dinner. With a few little adjustments, we have basically a Sunday roast for big celebrations. And it's amazing. I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Maybe I should make myself a roast chicken tonight. Decisions. Cool. All right, let's move on to the final short story. And it's kind of similar to the story we had earlier about Priya, because she had this job interview disaster, and this story is also related to a job interview. And the title is The Job Interview. Simple. So, let me read it, and then we can finish off for this podcast. Let's do it. Ethan had never felt so out of his depth. He stared at the posh glass building in central London and tugged nervously at his tie. This was a big deal, a marketing job at one of the top dogs in the industry. And him? He'd only just finished uni and was winging it, big time. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and walked in. The receptionist gave him a polite smile. You're here for the 11 o'clock? Yep, Ethan Taylor. Take a seat. They'll call you up shortly. Ethan nodded, then immediately knocked over a stack of company brochures with his elbow. They fluttered to the floor like confetti. Smooth, he muttered, crouching to pick them up. 5 minutes later, a man in a sharp suit appeared. Ethan? I'm Dan, one of the senior managers. Follow me. Ethan followed, trying to walk like someone who had his act together. They passed modern workspaces, trendy coffee stations, and glass-walled meeting rooms. Everyone looked busy, important, and terrifyingly confident. The interview room had two people waiting, Dan and a woman named Priya, who introduced herself as the team lead. After some small talk, the questions began. So, Ethan, tell us a bit about yourself, Priya said. He launched into his rehearsed answer. Well, I studied business and marketing at uni, and during that time I ran the social media for the campus cafe, Dan interrupted, glancing at his CV. Yeah, Ethan said, trying to sound confident. I revamped their Instagram and tripled their following. Dan raised an eyebrow. Tripled? Yep. Went from about 300 to 950. Priya smiled. That's technically tripled. Ethan gave a nervous laugh. Exactly. The questions kept coming, and Ethan did his best to keep up. There were moments where he blanked completely, stumbled over his words, or forgot the second half of the question. But there were also moments where he shone. When he talked about creative campaigns or working under pressure at his part-time job, still, when the interview ended, he felt like he'd muffed it. "Thanks for coming in," Dan said, shaking his hand. Priya added, "We'll be in touch either way," which, in Ethan's mind, was code for, "You didn't get it, mate." He trudged out the building, pulled off his tie, and sighed. Well, that was a disaster. He texted his flatmate. "Let's get a pint later. I need to drown my sorrows." A week passed, no news. Ethan started applying for other jobs, though none excited him quite like that one. He kept checking his inbox, hoping for a miracle. Then, on Friday afternoon, his phone buzzed. Email from Priya Sharma. He stared at the screen. His heart was thumping. He tapped it open and skimmed the first line. "We're pleased to offer you the position." Ethan let out a yell that probably startled the neighbors. "I got it! I actually got it!" Later that evening, he met his flatmate at the pub. "I thought you said it was a disaster," she asked. "I did. I thought I'd completely fluffed it." She grinned. Maybe they liked the chaos. Or maybe they were desperate. Either way, drinks are on you tonight. Ethan raised his pint and clinked hers, to winging it and somehow pulling it off. There we go. There we have our 5 stories. And he was winging it. If you wing something, you do something without really preparing it. It's like you're improvising and doing well. You're playing it by ear. So he winged it and, well, he got offered the job. And it's funny as well, because, as you can see, this job interview was almost related to the previous job interview, because we saw a familiar face, or a familiar name at least, which was Priya. So clearly, since Priya got the job, she managed to scale up, get promoted, and now she's in a pretty decent position. So in the end, they're going to be working together. Isn't that nice? Beautiful. So that is it. There you have the 5 short stories from this week and the first 5 short stories from last week. As I said, if you didn't listen to the podcast last week, I'd encourage you to do so. So you can listen to me narrating the other 5 stories, which are really interesting as well. And if you like this format of podcast and videos, please let me know, because if you don't let me know, well, I won't know. And if you enjoyed it, of course, leave a like, and don't forget to share the video with anyone you think might benefit from my content. As you're aware, every day I upload a short video, and then on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I always upload a long form video. Whether that's a podcast, me speaking about something, me teaching you some advanced phrases, phrasal verbs, idioms, and so on. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching or listening once again, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, and see you next time. Bye bye.